I believe that the way that I got out of that was by not identifying with myself as someone who is crippled with anxiety. I didn't want to be that person. That wasn't who I saw myself as. And I set out to recover from anxiety, from the crippling anxiety. And I understood at some point that anxiety is something that we all need, and that I didn't have to get rid of it. And it wasn't trying to hurt me, kill me, ruin my life. It was something that we needed to just understand. I just needed to understand that part of myself. Hi everybody, it's me, Corrie T, and in this video I want to share with you my personal story and my journey with our friend anxiety, because I know that so many of you experience anxiety, and I know what it's like to feel like anxiety is just getting in the way of manifesting whatever it is that we want. And that's not the case, but it really can feel like that's what's happening sometimes. And I know that I've shared with you my story about manifesting my specific person, but in that story and underneath that story, there was a lot of anxiety and unraveling my anxiety and healing that happened. And so I wanted to share with you my experience with anxiety, not only because I wanted to share with you my empathy for anyone who experiences really crippling anxiety, but also give you some hope if you're someone that doesn't know how to resolve this anxiety, and to let you know that you're normal and that things can change and that things do get easier. There was a time years ago now where my anxiety just for years ran my life, as in it just crept into every single area of my life, my social life, my health, my education. It felt like anxiety was just completely running the show for me, and I just did not know how I would get out of it. And one of the things that I'm most proud of about my life is that I remember that time so clearly, and I remember thinking, this isn't how life should be. I shouldn't be this anxious. I shouldn't be ruled by these thoughts, and my life shouldn't be ruined like this by thinking and feeling so terrible all the time. And I remember doctors and people telling me, maybe this is just the way you are. Maybe you'll always be like this. Maybe you'll always be on medication. And I just didn't want that to be true. And I said no to that. I internally said, that will not be my story. I'm not going to allow that. And I just never bought into the belief that that's who I was. And so it did take me a long time to recover from that anxiety, but honestly I did, to a point where my life is so much lighter now, so much freer. I understand myself so much more, and so much has changed over the years. So I wanted to tell you a bit about how that happened and how that evolved like that. But also I was inspired to do this video because one of my clients today told me that she'd watched my TED Talk, which is all about anxiety and all about perceiving anxiety differently, perceiving anxiety as a friend and not trying to get it to go away and get rid of it. And I did that TED Talk 7 years ago now, so a lot has changed since then. And usually when people watch that TED Talk, which I will link below, people say to me, oh my God, I can't believe you did a TED Talk, and wow, that's amazing, and the TED Talk was so good, I loved it, and I get all these compliments about it. But what she noticed was something that no one said to me before, which is, I watched your TED Talk, but what was really crazy is how different you come across now compared to then. When I watch that TED Talk, I can see my nerves. I can see how terrified I was. I can see how I was looking at the ground, wondering if I was going to forget my next line. Just, I was nervous, and actually it comes across in my body language. There's times where I'm looking at the ground, my shoulders are a bit tense, my voice is a little bit shaky, you can hear it in my breath. I suppose, understandably so, it is a TED Talk after all, and it was pretty terrifying to do a TED Talk. But you know, I did do the TED Talk, and at the time I thought I was pretty confident and I thought I'd overcome a lot of my anxiety. But the ironic thing was that the day that I did the TED Talk, I was absolutely terrified. My heart was racing so much. And I stood on the stage and I did it anyway. And I was thinking, oh my God, can I really do a TED Talk about anxiety when I don't know if I've ever been more anxious in my life than today? But still I did, and it was fine. And I was telling my clients today as well that first of all, I did manifest doing the TED Talk in the first place. It was something that I really wanted to do. I imagined doing it, and then literally the opportunity fell into my lap. But also, the day that I'd done it, I mean, there'd been a massive rigmarole with me writing the TED Talk. It had been rejected a few times. I'd had all sorts of drama with my living situation at the time. My roof fell into my bedroom floor, and it was just a chaotic time, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to do it. And the week before I did it, I managed to write the TED Talk, learn it, and do stuff at the BBC for my songwriting. And it was just such a chaotic week. And so what I did was, before the TED Talk, I went into the theatre and I stood there on my own, and I imagined, and this is before I knew anything about manifesting, I imagined that there was a standing ovation. I imagined people laughing. I imagined feeling like it's done. I've finished it. It's finished. I've done it. I've done the TED Talk. Everything was fine. Everybody loved it. Everything went fine. And I stood there in that theatre, and I remember so clearly just imagining, oh my God, I did it. And I remember walking across the stage, walking across to the other side of the room, and visualizing people cheering and clapping and smiling at me, and that feeling of it's done. And then that is exactly what happened. It did go really well, considering that I'd only written it that week, and that, I was still pretty anxious and nervous about it. But anyway, when I look back at that now, I can see, like, she saw that my general attitude and my general manner of speaking is completely different now, and I come across in a much more relaxed, calm way than I did then. And it's very interesting because so much has changed. So let's go back to the beginning. When I was a teenager, when I was younger, I started getting really, really bad anxiety. And I started getting anxiety actually when I was young, because my parents had split up. There was quite a traumatic time, and, I got separation anxiety. So my mum and dad broke up. My dad was away a lot. And there was lots of things happened that were traumatic for a child. And so I had anxiety from a very, very young age, and it was mostly separation anxiety. When I got older, I became obsessive about things. So I'd become obsessive about boys, right? I would become very obsessive about boys. Wanting their attention, but I would be like obsessed with one. There was one boy called Andrew who I was just obsessed with when I was about 11. And these obsessions would flip from one thing to the next. As I got older, I became obsessed with my health. So I had really, really bad hypochondria. And I was always so terrified that I was going to get an illness, that I was going to die, that, that was something wrong with my moles. I had a lot of moles here, I still do. And I was always terrified, analysing them, obsessing about them, wanting to go to the doctors, thought I was going to die of just so many terrifying things. And, I was always going back and forth to the doctor. Sometimes I'd be going like 3 times a week. And throughout my teenage years, this was my life. Just obsessions with one. If it wasn't one thing, it was another thing. If it wasn't a health thing, it was, the end of the world, terrorist attacks, all sorts of things. My life was just always in this state of fear. That then fed into my relationships, where I just got obsessed with whoever it was I was with. And I had a few boyfriends when I was like a teenager. When I was 17, I got into a really serious relationship with someone, and that was just all about my anxiety. It was all about my daddy issues. It was me just desperately seeking safety in another person and finding none of it there, because no one can really give you certainty except finding it within yourself. And so I was always looking for external validation, just all the time. It was all about, asking for reassurance all the time, like holding on really tightly, being really, really needy, needing to know that everything was all right, not being able to be out of sight of my partner, and it was just so draining. I was very, very needy. I was always crying, always wanting reassurance from him, and eventually that relationship broke up because it had to. It was too stressful for both of us, and I needed to do the work on myself, and I had no idea what that meant. So that is when, after that, when we broke up, then I was 18 or something, I went on this, big internal journey of self-discovery. And that meant then, for some reason, that I actually didn't want to be with anyone. I didn't want to be with anyone at all. My interest in men just died. I was not interested, and I felt like that was weird and that was confusing. And I just couldn't bring myself to be with anyone. I was too scared, too closed off. It was like my heart just shut off, and I couldn't actually open up to anyone, and my attraction to everyone just wasn't there. It was really, really a confusing time, and that went all the way through university. So through university I was very confused about who I was. I was really confused about what I was attracted to, who I was attracted to, if I was attracted to anyone. It was very weird because I didn't have any of the answers. And that led me to a year in my second year of uni where I just was incredibly introspective, obsessed with finding out the answer. I got obsessed with my identity. So I was always questioning, who I was. And these thoughts became obsessive. So I kind of got this OCD about analysing who I was and who I was attracted to. And it was like I would look at everybody and analyse, am I attracted to this person? They're attractive. Maybe I'm attracted to them. But maybe I'm not because I don't feel anything. And maybe I am. I want their approval. So does that mean that I'm attracted to them? I just lost all ability to just be natural and just let things flow. And socially, I was very anxious as well, which was weird because I did a drama degree and I was always wanting to perform. I've been a songwriter as long as I can remember. And always wanted to go on stage. So it's like I became a different person when I was on stage. My identity was safe being on stage because that was a different thing. And people were looking at me, validating me, giving me that approval. So, when people ask me, how can you go on stage and do all of that and also be so anxious? And it was basically because I was getting some of my needs met. Being on stage, people are looking at me, validating me, giving me that approval. And then I felt seen. I felt like maybe on some unconscious level, I felt seen and validated and, wanted because people were paying me attention. And the rest of the time, I just felt small and not worthy and not enough. And so, I felt like socially I was very, very uncomfortable, always trying to fit in. Social anxiety just was really difficult at uni because I never felt like I fit in with the people who I thought were cool and social groups. And this lasted, all the way to my mid-20s, where I would always want to fit in with certain social groups to be cool, to say the right thing, do the right thing. And I never felt comfortable. And it wasn't till later on that I thought, what, some people I do feel really, really comfortable with, and they're my people. I don't have to be everybody's person. I don't have to fit in everywhere. Some people are my people, some people are not. And that gave me a lot of peace because I thought, well, I don't have to try and be liked by everybody, and that's fine. And I don't have to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. And then so I started going on this massive search for why am I so anxious? Why? I need to understand. No one's going to tell me that I'm going to be like this forever. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to allow it. I am going to be better than this. I am going to heal this. I'm going to understand it. And there are a few people in my life, close friends and a couple of family members, but not many of them, who really, really understood and wanted to validate my anxiety and help me understand it. And I sought out a coach, a therapist, every type of therapist, hypnotherapist, everything. And there were a few people who taught me lessons along the way about soothing myself, about understanding where the anxiety had come from, connecting the dots of my past, unraveling things as I went along, really crying things out, releasing emotions that were there, understanding my beliefs about myself, about relationships, about where all this had come from. And therapy became something that I found so important. And then coaching, when I got a coach to understand the future, it was about the past, understanding the past, and then creating the future. The two things seemed to just go really well. So after university, I had a big drama with my eyes. I got diagnosed with keratoconus. So one of my big anxieties about my health was that I couldn't see properly. I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? And, I just, every time I went to the opticians, they'd say, there's nothing wrong with your eyes, but apart from your vision has got worse in the last 6 months, but here's some more glasses. And it went on for years, 6 years, to the point where I was going like this everywhere I went, just always squinting. It turned out, after just ages of anxiety and worrying that there was something wrong with my brain and being terrified that I was dying, that actually I had a condition called keratoconus. When I got my operation, I had an operation and some contact lenses that allowed me to see better again. My life changed, and I was able to sort of stop worrying about my eyes and focus on myself and healing myself and doing things that I enjoyed and connecting to myself again, which is when, I started doing things that I wanted to do. I took a job as a activity leader, which was very creative, with lots of young people, inspiring young people, doing creative activities. It was really fun, and it got me out of my kind of darkness and allowed me to just be who I was, and that was really great. But what changed everything was when I moved to Brighton in the UK, and I was focused on my songwriting. I did a songwriting course in Brighton, and I was around people who let me be me. I was around people who didn't judge me. I was around people who enjoyed my company, thought I was funny. And just, it made me feel so much lighter and freer. And that decision to go somewhere that I decided to go because I wanted to go there, because it was my choice and it wasn't anything to do with anyone else, and no one in my family had influenced me. It was just like, I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to make it my home and I'm going to do something that I want to do. That was the thing where I started to feel really like myself again, and a lot of my anxiety just faded into the background. I was distracted, so it wasn't necessarily deep healing, but it was a relief from the intense anxiety that I'd felt before. And doing something that I loved and being distracted was just a massive change. Focusing on myself. What I did was focus on myself. I just focused on myself, the things that I wanted to do, and I didn't allow anyone's judgments or opinions of me doing, a creative qualification to get in the way. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and it made me feel free and light, and I loved being by the sea. And there was lots of things that were really great for me there, the freedom and the horizon on the beach. I just loved it. And so I felt a lot better, but my relationships were still confusing to me. I was still confused. I was having these mini attractions to people, and then nothing ever coming of them. And so all that time, this was years down the line, I was maybe 27 by then. I was doing 26, 27, doing lots of inner work, doing lots of therapy. I learned about affirmations. I started learning about the law of attraction, and it changed my thinking from oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to solve this, to there is a way, and I'm deciding that there's a way. There's a way for me to feel better. And I'd already proven to myself that I could get out of that deep, dark hole of anxiety, because I already felt better from doing things that I like doing, from setting myself free from the trap of people's judgments, and just focusing on things that took me out of my head and into my body. That was such a big thing, getting out of my head and into my body, massive thing. And at this point, I was able to really look back at the younger me, the teenage me, the me in my early 20s, and say, oh my God, I've come such a long way. Remember when I was crippled with anxiety? Remember when I couldn't leave the house? Remember when I was terrified to go to any social gatherings? Remember when I was judging myself all the time? Remember when I felt bad for feeling anxious? And all of that felt like it was starting to fade. away, and that I was becoming more light and more me. So it felt like I'd already achieved a lot. But little did I know at that point that I still had so much work to do in terms of the way I felt about myself in relationships, my real and inner deep confidence. And that wouldn't come for another few years. There was still so much to do. And by this point, I'd got to the point where I got confident enough to go and take a job and move to Australia. I moved to Australia for a couple of years. I was anxious there. I was socially anxious. I didn't want to go out ever. I was they'd always ask me, do you want to come out after work? And I'd always say no. I just wanted to be on my own. I just wanted to read my self-help books and imagine things and manifest stuff and be on my own. That's what I wanted to do. And, it made me very, very isolated and lonely. And it made being in Australia incredibly difficult because I just wanted to go home. I just wanted my safety. I wanted my familiarity. And my life was quite small, even though I was having this amazing adventure on my own. But, through that time, my dad lived there. So I was able to have conversations with my dad that healed a lot of my old beliefs about what I thought he was, what I thought love was, what I expected from him, my frustration with him being who he was and not being the dad that I needed and all of this. And there was so much anger and resentment that was released in that time where I'd had those conversations with myself, with my dad, and with my therapist, and with my coach, all of it. So I was doing lots of things. I went to an anxiety retreat in Australia. I went to a coaching event where I learned about freeing yourself from things. I did a coaching course where I learned to become a life coach in the first place. And I did lots of things that sort of taught me a lot about neuroplasticity, about how the brain works, about where anxiety comes from. I did so much research on anxiety. I did so much research on what anxiety was and where it came from. And it's true what they say, knowledge really is power. When I understood what actually anxiety was and that it wasn't trying to hurt me or ruin my life, and I wasn't messed up, and I wasn't, there was nothing wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me at all. I was just experiencing the natural consequence of the things that had happened or not happened in my childhood and in my upbringing. Because often when people think about inner child wounds, they think about, oh, well, that doesn't make sense to me because nothing really big happened, nothing, dramatic happened for me. So, I don't really know what I've got to heal. But often it's not about what happened, but what didn't happen, where the needs were not met, those little moments where you needed to be validated, but you weren't, where you needed to express yourself, but you weren't, where you felt something and no one listened. There's so many things that can happen in childhood that give us these sort of anxieties that become part of our system and what we believe, and unexpressed wounds and things like that just stay there and infect the way that we perceive the world and perceive relationships. And so in Australia, I healed a lot. I did a lot of work, and then, came back to the UK, did my master's degree in songwriting, which again was great, made me feel like me, really made me feel free, and I was focused on what I wanted to do. And there was lots and lots of healing in that course itself, because I did a whole project on addiction and understanding and releasing addiction, and all throughout this time, reading lots of books, going to therapy, going to coaching, unraveling my past, healing. I just did it all. I felt like I'd done everything. I went to hypnotherapy, psychology lessons, just loads of stuff. And I did as much as I possibly could to really, really understand myself. And yeah, there was times where I wasn't doing so much because I was distracted doing other things. Maybe I was happy. And then in terms of relationships, at this point, I'd met Johnny back in Brighton, so that began then. But a lot of the time I wasn't focused on that because I was focused on other things. I had another relationship while I was in Australia, and that brought up lots of stuff for me to heal too. There was lots of things that happened. But what I'm trying to say really is that I've gone from someone who was crippled by anxiety, and I believe that the way that I got out of that was by not identifying with myself as someone who is crippled with anxiety. I didn't want to be that person. That wasn't who I saw myself as. And I set out to recover from anxiety, from the crippling anxiety. And I understood at some point that anxiety is something that we all need, and that I didn't have to get rid of it, and it wasn't trying to hurt me, kill me, ruin my life. It was something that we needed to just understand. I just needed to understand that part of myself. And the more awareness I gave myself, the more I understood and connected those dots of my past, and the more I understood how to respond differently to those anxious thoughts, and that thoughts were not necessarily going to pop into reality and ruin my life, because I was having horrible thoughts. And if thoughts created all of that stuff, then I wouldn't be here now, because I thought some horrible things, scary things. And I had to learn to accept that thoughts are just thoughts. Some thoughts are just thoughts. They're the product of fear, which I had a lot of in my system that I needed to express, needed to release, needed to get out. And that's why, therapy and coaching was so powerful for me, because it enabled me to understand myself on such a deep, profound level, which I'm still doing. I mean, I'm still having breakthroughs now. Even last week in a coaching session that I had an amazing breakthrough where so much stuff came out, and I was crying my eyes out, and I was like, bloody hell, didn't know that was all still in there. It's just an ongoing journey that we're all on. And, I wanted to tell you this story because I wanted it to give you hope if you're someone who's had anxiety and has suffered with anxiety and you don't understand what the hell is going on, that there is hope that things get easier. They just do get easier, and just to persist in knowing that things get easier and that you will find the answers. I set out to find the answers, and I did that through reading, through going to therapy, through listening to things online. I was just determined, and still am always determined, to understand myself better. And the more I do that, the more awareness I have, the more I accept myself, the more I love myself, the more I can be there for myself, and it just makes you feel lighter. And it means that these thoughts, these negative thoughts, don't have so much of a reason to exist, because that fear is lessening, and that the fear wants a reason to exist. So it creates these thoughts for us. It creates those worries and those anxieties, and it makes us project outside of us like the reason for its existence, when really it's just a part of ourselves that needs to be seen, needs to be loved, needs to be validated, needs to be understood by you, and really only you. So that is just, hopefully it gives you some insight and some hope into the fact that anxiety is fine. It's there for you to understand, for you to love, for you to welcome, for you to allow it into your experience and to feel it. You know what they say, feel it to heal it. And that was a big thing for me as well, understanding that I needed to allow myself to feel some of this stuff, and that it wasn't going to kill me. It's uncomfortable. It's very, very uncomfortable to feel all of this anxiety. So uncomfortable, painful. And, it's not going to kill you. It's just not. And it's never killed me. And I felt so crippled by anxiety in the past before, and it's come in waves. I had that awful time when I was young, and then it got better, and then it went really bad again. Now I have moments where I'm like, oh God, okay, I can feel it. There's something there for me to heal. There's something there, and I need to have a look at it, to understand it. And yes, sometimes it's really confusing, and you want to know, like, okay, unconscious mind, hi, I'm ready. You can tell me what this is now. I want to know. But you have to trust that you will know when you're ready to know. It will heal when it's ready to be healed. That's the thing with this, you can't put pressure on yourself to just feel okay. You can't put pressure on yourself to be the secure version of you immediately. Like, it takes the time that it takes, and you're where you're meant to be now. That's why I always say you're exactly where you're meant to be, because you have to trust that your body will allow you to feel what it needs to feel when it's ready to feel that, when it's ready to release it. You've got to trust yourself, trust your body, and allow the process to just be what it is, but just continue to be determined to resolve whatever it is within you that needs to be resolved, and have patience with yourself, and just trust that things get easier. Things get easier. One of the biggest things for me, I think, honestly, was like my environment. My environment was such a stabilizing factor for me in healing my anxiety. When I took control of my environment and my living situation, I felt a lot better. You know, when I had my own space, when I moved out of my mum's house, I felt so much more like me. Not that there was anything wrong with living at my mum's house, but that feeling of like being free and having my independence and creating my own security made me feel a lot more at peace. But also like creating a nice environment, making it look nice, having pictures on the walls, making it into sort of a tranquil, nice place. That was really, really stabilizing for me, and I really, really enjoyed and still enjoy always making my environment a really comfortable place. But also, yeah, being around people, having that sense of connection, because as much as, you know, we can be isolated and we isolate ourselves when we're anxious, we also have a human need for connection. And whenever I've been particularly anxious, or, you know, not really that anxious, but just not really that sociable either, that says to me that I'm not feeling my best. I'm not in my most authentic state, because I want to isolate, I want to hide, I want to resolve something, I just want to be away from people. But really, human connection is such an important thing. So even if it's like ringing a friend, ringing someone that you like speaking to someone on the internet, whatever it is, as long as you can try and find bits of that connection, it's a very stabilizing thing. So it's hard to summarize the journey of recovering from deep anxiety, and it's really hard to summarize the steps, because everybody is so unique and everybody's so different and everybody responds differently. But there are some things that are true for everyone, and one of them is that we have brains that are made of neuroplasticity, which gives everybody hope, because neuroplasticity means that the brain can change. Neuroplasticity means that new patterns can be made. Our brains literally are loads of patterns. So we can create behavioural changes that affect the way that we feel and affect the way that we respond to anxiety. And, you know, for me, responding to my anxiety differently was a massive thing. Mindfulness, slowing down, meditation, all these things like massively helped me. And so now, you know, I'm at the point where my anxiety still comes up from time to time, and it's something that I'm still working through and working on, but it's nothing like what it was before. You know, I will still get triggered by things. I still have to work through triggers. You know, that is part of the healing journey and part of being human. And I don't want to beat myself up for that, because I think that we only know what we know. We only know what we know. We're always doing our best. So we can't really ever blame ourselves for anything, because we're always doing our best. We all want to be the most secure version of ourselves, don't we? So, you know, not to blame yourself, but to take responsibility and do the best you can to heal what you know you can heal, to understand what you can, and to seek out the help and support that you can when you can, in order for you to grow and get that better understanding of yourself. So now I'm definitely in a place where I look back at that time and think, bloody hell, I've come so far. I can't believe the person that I was behaving like before. I can't believe that that's how I existed. I'm so grateful. I'm so proud of how far I've come with my anxiety. And my family, you know, they'd all tell you the same thing. I really act like a different person now compared to the person that I am. I think every time it's my birthday, my brother reminds me in a birthday card how far I've come with my anxiety. But you know, it's definitely something that I continue to work on. But I wanted to share this as well, because I just wanted to share my absolute deep empathy with anyone who has struggled with anxiety. You know, maybe it's obsessive thinking, maybe it's social anxiety, maybe it's anxiety in relationships. You know, in my opinion, when you understand yourself, understand your beliefs, understand your traumas, understand where this has come from, then you can become the soothing adult that you needed. You are the soothing adult that you needed. You are the one who's going to change this. And it's totally, completely in your hands. And with the help of others, you know, I'm saying it's totally and completely in your hands, as in you've got the power to change this. You really, really do. But there are people who can support you and help you. And there are people who will deeply understand your journey and offer you that kind of, you know, metaphorical holding your hand through the process. And seek out those people, because there are many of them, whether it's a friend, someone who you don't even know that well. Sometimes you can have amazing conversations with people, profound conversations that you remember forever, just by allowing yourself to connect with the people around you, and you might not even know that person that well. So yeah, there is a lot of hope for people who have anxiety, and the brain changes. It's what it does. The brain changes all the time, and anxiety is something that can be massively lessened, and we can't get rid of it because we need it. It's a survival instinct. So that's why we have to make it our friend, and we have to understand that it is trying to protect us and it is trying to keep us safe. But, you know, we're not trying to get rid of it. We're really not. It's something that we need. So if you can have that compassion for yourself along the journey to creating a calmer, more at peace version of yourself, which exists already, it's just the unraveling, getting to it that we've got to do, then you're less frustrated with yourself. You don't judge yourself so much, you know. You understand that the way I feel is the way I feel. It's supposed to be like this. It makes perfect sense given what I've been through. You've probably been through a hell of a lot, you know, and you've got to have that love and compassion for yourself every single day in this journey. And particularly, you know, while you're manifesting and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm having all these negative thoughts. Why am I having these negative thoughts? Don't beat yourself up about it. You know, you've probably got some anxiety, some things that are yet to be resolved, and you don't know what you don't know. So you're working on that, right? You're doing your best. Don't beat yourself up. You're feeling what you're supposed to feel, and it's all going to be resolved in time. Just set the intention that that's what's going to happen, and that is what will happen. You know, just every day, day by day, just take it day by day. You are always where you're meant to be, and you can be really, really proud of yourself. So I hope that this video has been useful. I know it's a bit of a longer one today, but there was a lot to say, and I think it was just important for me to just get as much out of it as I could. But, you know, there'll be things where I think, oh God, I wish I said that. But, you know, if you want to talk to me and you want some support along the journey, you know, I'm not a mental health professional, I'm not a psychologist, but I have a very deep understanding of this. I've done, you know, other courses that make me have a deeper understanding about this. But if you'd like some support along with this in your journey, you know, this is part of the looking at the past bit, and in coaching we look at the future, so the two things kind of go really well together. And if you would like some support, then I'm here. You know, you can talk to me, and I'd love to be part of your journey. So I will leave a link below if you do want to get in touch, and if not, then I will see you in the next video. Bye.